Welcome to Wisdom Exchange TV. My name is Suzanne F Stevens, Chief Edge Optimizer for the Ignite Excellence Group of Initiatives. One of our key initiatives is the Ignite Excellence Foundation. Its goal is to invest, inspire, and developing leading ladies in emerging countries. With that spirit, we produce Wisdom Exchange TV, where we interview pioneers, trailblazers, and leaders of many, African women in philanthropy, business, education, as well as politics. We are in Swaziland today with our leading lady in business. Her name is Fikile Nkosi. Fikile is the first woman in Swaziland to head up a managing director post for international bank, Nedbank Swaziland. It is so nice to meet you. So what was the catalyst for pursuing a career in finance?
It started in high school. My dream was to be a chartered accountant, so it's always been in finance. When I finished my university degree, the career path that led me to be in the corporate finance was to do articles with a law firm, KPMG, one of the big five. I worked for KPMG for about 6 years. KPMG is an international audit firm. They teach you accounting and auditing, as it were. I audited. I loved it. The energy is amazing because you work on tight deadlines. It teaches you discipline, time management. It teaches you focus, completion of work, accuracy. It's very, very key for an accountant. I was one of the lucky ones that we actually chosen to do the financial services sector. I focused on that audit, and naturally that had the banks, all the banks in Swaziland, and I also did manufacturing as my mergers. So that's basically, for me, it was very easy. It wasn't something that I stumbled upon.
So when you were in high school, did you think, someday I want to be the head of a bank or something along those lines?
Suzanne, funny enough, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I never thought about running an institution, even heading it for that matter. Mm-hmm. For me, I just wanted to be this accountant and be there. I was imagining myself earning and just being happy to be driven. Mm-hmm. As an accountant and as an accomplished accountant woman.
Are there a lot of women in Swaziland in the ranks that you sit with at that executive level?
Unfortunately, no. Banking is very conservative. Banking is a cutthroat industry in its own world. It's highly regulated. The hours that you put in are very intense, and again, you've got to deliver. It's a deadline-driven industry in terms of the output plus the bottom line, because we work with money. Because of that, conservative, traditionally, it's been looked at as a male-dominated industry. Only man could survive in this type of industry. When I started, funny enough, all the banks were headed by males. They still are, say for this one. They were headed by males. Even the finance director's position, because it's a key position in a bank. But the encouraging thing is that we've seen an introduction of other women in the executive positions of banks in Swaziland.
How do you manage your communications with the variety of stakeholders and the different roles that you play?
There's a one-on-one on clients where you visit the client and we go through the whatever issue that we're dealing with. There's a written communication to stakeholders like the regulator. There's also one-on-ones in terms of my teams, my colleagues, be it the lower levels or the executive. For the lower levels, because we've got 9 branches countrywide, we do have the publications, the electronic bulletins, but I do believe that over and above the written communique that we have, there has to be that touch. That's what I've brought in as a woman leader. There has to be that touch, i.e. every quarter I've got to visit all the branches and I've got to communicate and let's sit together, let's remind each other what we want, where we are about, let's remind each other where we are, where we're going, and let's interact with each other. For me, that is very, very key. You write, you phone, but interaction, personal interaction is very, very, very key.
How many are on your direct management team? 10, okay. What sort of leadership style do you use, or are you conscious on how you deal with your leadership team? Do you have any strategy you can share?
Traditionally, generally, we encourage open door policy in terms of communication. But we also, because it's a bank, written communication is very important. But because we are very lucky, we're fortunate that we're in the same building, we also interact on a one-on-one. But there's formal meetings that are set for one-on-one interactions for my direct reports. Every month there must be a communique, just sitting with the head of function and myself, and let's go through issues. If I have issues, if they have issues against me, we talk around that. Challenges, successes, we share those. This is over and above the structured meetings where we sit as a group, management meetings or executive meetings.
How often do you have those?
Once a month as well.
Yeah.
But then over and above that, there's things that we do not want to perhaps share in the meeting, or we will agree on the one-on-one sessions that we will actually, how we will handle it for the entire team. One-on-one sessions are 12 times as well. That is for the year, because it's also important just to have that special touch with your team.
If your team was to describe you as a leader, how would they describe you? Do I have to ask them?
I think you'd want to ask them, but I guess pragmatic, tenacious, they always say, focused. Well, they don't say pushy, but because result-oriented. I'm very much result-oriented.
What advice can you provide to get teams in alignment with the corporate vision?
What I would advise is more communication, clarity of roles is very, very key. The description of the vision, people must understand the vision of the organization. They've got to understand the strategy. They've got to be part of the strategy. We've done as a team is to engage the lower level, middle management with us as we're crafting the strategy, the 3-year plan for the business. And then once we do that, we cascade it further to the teams. But of importance is for me, when I do my one-on-one sessions, is to inquire among my teams to say, how far have we gone in explaining this, your strategy to your teams and how they fit into it. We call it resonance. The more you talk about it, the more you communicate, the better, the clearer it becomes. And I would encourage every leader to try and communicate as much as possible. They say there's over-communication, but I prefer over-communication than under-communication.
Yeah, being, as you know, that's my area of expertise. I often see, organizations that communicate a lot, but long as they're communicating the right messages a lot, because then it becomes, as you said, the controlling of expectations is such a huge piece, and if you're not communicating on both sides of that, you can run yourself into some problems.
That is why you've got to do it in more than one mode.
Yeah.
There's the written communication, then you've got to then do the face-to-face communication. It's very key because, it clarifies the things that were communicated or miscommunicated. So again, it's very, very important to do different types of communication.
Yeah, very good
within
point.
a team.
Very good point. Let's look at sort of the skill, not only the skill, but the behaviors, the characteristics that you have that would actually allow you to get to this position. And if you think about what those characteristics are, I'm going to ask you another question there. Advise other women what they need to do in order to get to the corporate level and the executive boardroom, if you will.
When you go into practice, what do you want to achieve? The mistake that we have as women or as the youth, is we want to just have, I just want to be a lawyer, I just want to be an accountant, without really defining what you want to do with that. When you're trying to choose your career path, I would actually encourage people to understand the end in mind, have their goal set up front, because i.e. you will realize that you get a pay, marginal pay than corporate, because you're in practice. You work, you put in extra hours plus the studying. So you may be distracted a bit if you were to look at somebody who's out in practice, or is out in corporate, sorry, I beg your pardon, in practice, in corporate, who's getting a little bit more than you at that time. But you sacrifice for the future, that you will sacrifice your time, money, luxuries, and to a certain extent, maybe a bit of fun. You won't have much as the person who's out there, who's perhaps a teacher, who's working for government, who's working for a donor agency, is able to do than you. So the first thing that I'd advise a young person is, or other women for that matter, is decide what you want to do. Be it, if you want to be a corporate lawyer, where do you want that to lead you? Do you want to have your own practice? Because that's totally a different career path. Or you want to be in the corporate world where you'll be running a big multinational corporation. So that's the beginning point. Then you craft your career path towards that. You become the financial accountant, like in my case. You qualify, you do all the board exams, but there's a lot of discipline that is involved, because the type of profession that we're in, the industry, requires you practical plus you studying as you do that. Same with lawyers. I think even in medicine, most disciplines, once you become professional, you've got to have some practical aspect and still do your studies. So there's a lot of discipline in terms of focus, in terms of financial discipline, because you half the time you are actually funding yourself. You would be very, very lucky if you get a financier. But most of these organizations, like I was very lucky with KPMG, they were paying part of the studies. So if you were studying and it was approved, you actually got a loan, a student loan, and that loan you would repay without interest. So it was made affordable. But at the same time, the pay is actually not that great, such that you would be comfortable in it. It actually propels you to get more.
To make it in corporate Swaziland, what characteristics do you think a person needs to have to make it at this level?
You've got to be a self-starter, self-driven, okay? Also have a bit of self-motivation. Sometimes you feel unappreciated, self-pity, but you've got to find a drive, the reason why you're there, and motivate yourself. Because again, remember, you are actually crafting yourself to be a leader. So if you motivate yourself, you'll be able to motivate those that are coming and looking up to you. So it's very, very important to be independent in terms of doing that piece of job that you've given. They must see that. They must actually see innovation in you. We normally get to the workplace and we expect everything to be A to Z. Sometimes you're just given an assignment and you're told deliver. So you've got to be a person that will actually be a self-starter in saying, how am I going to do this? What do I do? Innovation, self-driven. How do I do innovation? When do I deliver? The independence, the discipline in actually coming up with that piece of job.
My observations of interviewing women, but more being on the ground. People often look, this is my job, not this, and not this. And don't you think it's fair to say too that often when leaders, and if you want to get to your level, you have to look you have to look sideways, because if this is your role, this will always be your role.
Suzanne, that's a very key point. maybe to answer even that question better is to say, how did I get here? It's the ability of being dependable. You've got people must count on you. People must know that you're there. And knowing that you're there, at the same time, understanding that in order for you to get to do better in this industry, you've got to know more in this industry. Therefore, avail yourself if for whatever that your principals may look for in you. Sometimes they say allowed to be abused. They call it abuse, but I call it the ability to be trained. You want to learn more. Have this insatiable appetite for learning. Want to know more every day. There must be something that you're picking up, out there in terms of what you are doing in that industry. It really helps in the future, and when it comes to positioning. Working laterally and working focus is very important. However, it's very important you add more value if you know what is happening laterally. So therefore, how do you get to that level of actually learning more? It is availing yourself in terms of learnings, in terms of opportunities that are there, you grab those opportunities.
So what do you think then is some of the biggest barriers to seeing more women, not only in finance, I'm going to say in the corporate world, be it in Swaziland and maybe Southern Africa?
The biggest barrier for women is fear of the unknown. We're so afraid to take an opportunity, to grab an opportunity and go and run with it. We also are so scared of being criticized. We're so scared of criticism. Once you get to understanding the fact that criticism is part of building your character and identifying those critics that are constructive and those that are destructive, the ability to do that, nothing can stop you. You will be criticized as a leader, as an individual, but take what is positive out of that and perfect yourself and move on.
How do you personally handle that criticism, and what do you do with it?
How do I handle it? I receive it, I review it, I give feedback. For instance, if you're saying, I'm not communicating more as your leader, what is your suggestion? It then makes it a more interactive, or you're more inclusive in terms of trying to improve on that point that is actually viewed as a weak point on your part.
And also what you're doing, which is also very creative, is giving them some responsibility to come up with solutions rather than just bringing problems.
That's part of the leadership. That's part of the leadership.
That's right.
Attributes that you have. They say leaders are born, but you learn these things every day. And organizations are different. It is an art. You've got to develop an art of having a very inclusive interview with the person who's criticizing you.
Do you think, as a woman executive, in compared to perhaps a man executive, that people are or can be a little more critical of how we interact with each other, be it from an executive to the rest of your employees, and perhaps if a man was critical?
I've seen the difference because the previous MD was a man, and the previous one was a man, as you know, I'm the first one. There hasn't been a situation where the leader would be challenged openly. People expect more empathy from a woman when you lead them. They also expect a more softer approach from a woman. But because of that, when you criticize, they take it personally because they expect you to be a woman, to be understanding, to be motherly. But we're doing the same job as the men out there. I'm expected to deliver as the men are there as my opposition, and I'm expected to deal with non-performance as the man is expected to deal with non-performance, without losing my femininity, by the way. But that doesn't say I'm not firm. We've got deliverables. We've got to meet those deliverables.
What do you think the biggest opportunity is for women in executive positions? What do you think they need to do in order to be received at the executive level?
For me, I wouldn't want to say we should change anything as women. Be the woman, but be the woman that wants the output, the outcome, the productivity, just like what a man would want. Still maintain your femininity, but be firm. Let us be firm as women. Let us support each other as women in the corporate world. We have a tendency of, in fact, the worst critics of women are other women. We compete a lot with each other, and maybe because there's so much expectation in terms of the empathy that I spoke about, but you never lose sight of the fact that the most important thing is for you to deliver as per mandate of your principal. And that mandate is no different from any other leader, be it male or female. So let us understand that as women leaders. But also let us support each other where we feel there is need to support each other.
It's interesting that in Swaziland I've heard a lot of the competition, and I've seen it in other countries with women, and people saying support each other. I was reading a great article about a comment that was made, women collaborate, men negotiate. So yet it goes right against the whole philosophy that women tend to compete against each other. And I starting to believe women compete against each other when they're the pioneers, when they're at the beginning stages where it's all new, where you're footing, you're a pioneer, you're a trailblazer, you're the first in this position, where people, they jockey to get known, not consciously, more subconsciously. And over time, that starts dissipating. When there's more women in leadership positions, it becomes more collaborative rather than competitive. That's my theory on the whole thing, because just in different countries, the competition where there's not a ton of women in those roles seems more evident than where there is where a lot more women are in those positions.
You may be right. We've seen that in our politicians, women ministers. We've seen them collaborating, coming together in situations where they have handling projects. They will accompany each other. They will be there for each other. We try and do that in the corporate world, but when it matters the most, maybe it's the expectation. As your previous question was, what is the difference between the women leader and the man leader? The expectation is that as a women leader, you are not expected to actually be firm. And this is where this issue of you are seen as not so collaborative. Because what happens is that when you ask the critical question, I sit in other boards, by the way, representing various organizations. If that board, you find that there's a leader who is the CEO. The CEO expects of me to be more empathical. I will not be asking of deliverables, but I am a director. And I've got the fiduciary responsibilities of a director. So maybe it's understanding each other in terms of our roles as women leaders, as pioneers, as you say, because I've got a standard that I've got to maintain. If I start compromising that standard, it's not fair to the other leaders that are upcoming leaders looking up to me. And it's not fair to the person that I'm actually mentoring or I'm actually directing. So I think for me, it's an issue of understanding whether it's collaboration or it's a fiduciary responsibility that I'm actually doing.
I've heard this before in different countries where people will say, women in the boardroom are to be seen, not heard. What are your thoughts on that comment?
It's amazing how people can come up with lines like that, because if you're in the boardroom, you had a fiduciary responsibility of being there, in the first place. How do you explain your role in terms of fiduciary duties? There's an expectation. You have to point out issues. You've got to understand the issues. You've got to approve issues, and you can't do that as a woman that's just been seen. You've got to be involved in all that. So I think that cliche is a bit old at the moment. I don't think it applies now, because if you're running an organization, or even for that matter, just sitting as a director for whatever organization, you've got to be there, read. You can't just be a passenger director. You've got to read, because these people are actually committing you as well. So you cannot allow people to usurp your rights. You've got to understand that, understand your role. And then as well, in terms of just an ordinary woman who is an executive, you cannot afford not to be heard, because you've got to critique things that are actually infringing on your deliverables.
Have you ever come across a man that still may believe that to be true? And if you have, what advice would you give to women on what to do in that situation?
Just out of what I've worked with men who believe that women are to be seen. They don't say it so much.
Yeah,
you actually pick it. They ignore you, be it a chairman of a board. They just ignore your thoughts. But the way I have dealt with it is to keep on hopping. I prepare. Women must prepare for meetings. Women must know their subject matter. There is nothing more than that, because what happens over time, then this man understands that there's substance there. They cannot ignore you for forever, because you're there. You're coming up with pertinent issues. You're coming up with solutions, to problems. So slowly and gradually, you're the change agent towards those men. And I've been in a number of situations.
Which is excellent advice. It's just be prepared, know your stuff.
Know your stuff.
And speak up.
Speak up. If you've got it, just speak up. Do not feel sorry for yourself. You're not there by favor. You're there by merit. Understand that. And there's a number of people that are dependent on you, being there. Other women are saying, she's there, she's representing us. So if you're not saying anything and you're not preparing, you're letting down not just yourself, but a whole lot of other women out there.
Now, what would you say has been the most significant impact you feel you've made in your career or life at this point?
Being the first MD or CEO of a commercial bank, and another one to being the vice president of an employer organization. The impact was to give hope to the younger women out there, because it was known generally that women cannot lead an organization, because it comes with so many challenges that because of their nature they cannot handle. You've got to see stakeholders, authorities, sometimes at odd hours. You have to fire men that are not delivering. Sometimes that's not seen as a good thing. I've done that. I've been able to do that to get to where I am, and I think I've given women that ability. And again, I've given other organizations the faith in appointing other women. They can now appoint a woman into a leadership position.
I got asked this question not too long ago. Suzanne, how many people have you interviewed that I would know? And I said, well, how many women in Africa does anybody know? maybe 2 handfuls. I said, and it's a big continent. So, she said, I never looked at it that way. I said, so I'm actually the women that are doing a ton of stuff and are trailblazers and they're leaders and they're changing the landscape of their communities. Those are the ones I want to expose so we all know who they actually are.
After my appointment at Nedbank as the CFO, as a woman, because it's got lots of odd hours, long hours, Standard Bank then appointed one. And then we've seen FNB now appointing another. So again, I've given women a platform to showcase who they are in terms of leadership. We have the corporate social responsibility program as an organization. We do a lot of women empowerment. Because I'm a woman, I feel that there has to be a lot of other women. There's a lot of talent in women that we've ignored as corporates or as a nation. What we've done is we've actually cultivated more using certain platforms that we actually supporting the Businesswoman of the Year awards, where we are recognizing women entrepreneurs in the country, where we celebrate them, we provide them a network to meet other people like you, wisdom exchange. I've also used this opportunity through the Corporate Social Responsibility Program, supporting young mothers, single mothers. There's an organization that we're supporting. Again, because it's expected, the expectation of women out there, that you are the woman, you are a woman, so we want more out of you. So there's an organization for single parents that has been formed, and it's more like a care point, a care home in the northern part of Swaziland, where these single women that have been rejected by their families because they fell pregnant, teenagers, we try and put them through school, provide skills to them for the children, take their children to school as well.
There's so many of you doing those things, and we're not celebrating them and educating enough.
There's a lot of women that are on a mentorship program that I'm taking on. They've just requested that I take them on mentorship in smaller organizations. And I believe it came about because of my appointment, really, by and large. So that's what I've given to women. Mm-hmm. The hope that we can make it. If she can make it, an ordinary woman out there, I think we can make it. And let's find out how she can do it.
Yes, that's why we do Wisdom Exchange TV. So have you ever done an initiative at the bank, be it on a social consciousness or corporate social responsibility, or as a bank, in any case, that just did not work? And what did you learn from it, and what would you do differently as a result?
We are a very small economy that's really struggling. A lot of poverty, illiteracy, a lot of child-headed families. We chose this organization to have activities that will then channel the revenues to these areas, because we had an agreement with the organization that did not give specifics in terms of the outputs, and it was a long-term agreement. We had to continue with that, but it's not giving us what we want out of that partnership. For me, that's the biggest regret that I have as Nedbank. We could have done it better. Instead, we're paying more to try and reach out, because our target group is the communities, the impoverished communities. We're providing clean water, we're providing better health facilities, we're providing even food parcels, self-sustainability, and the empowerment of the youth and women. That's our target in terms of our CSR. So if we empower, we use a vehicle that's not actually achieving that, it's very sad. As a bank, we cannot be seen to be doing these things direct. because we focus on our business. Our role is to try and make this business profitable and productive so that we'll be able to give out to the communities.
What is the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome in pursuing your career?
I'm a mother, 2 beautiful children, and it's difficult to sometimes leave your child on a Saturday if you've got a board meeting and you can feel that they want to be with you. So what I've seen over the years is that most women end up foregoing one for the other. But how I've overcome it is a good support structure. Have your relations in place, be it family, be it a good helper out there. Make sure you look after the people that look after you. They'll look after you so that you are comfortable in whatever you're doing. But the biggest impediment, really the challenge, is balancing between your social life or your home life and career. Because there's always that criticism. Somehow you become guilty. And sometimes you feel, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be pursuing this because I'll be traveling, I'll be having long meetings, I'll be, in the office more. So those are the challenges that you have.
A lot of women have that challenge, and I know they can relate to how to make that. So having your infrastructure around you, and the caregiver, too, you've mentioned, that I think is also very, very important. Your edginess segment that I was talking to you about, where you have to do something that makes you very uncomfortable, but you have to do it in order to continue to be the success that you're...
Suzanne, that's a very dodgy one. As a leader, in any position, is maybe even in the African context, it is the ability to give negative feedback to the extent that you then compromise your output as well, because this person is not delivering and then is actually impacting on your output delivery. So what I have done, I've learned to do that and to handle non-performers, to fire if I have to, once I've gone through the process, without feeling that bad, that guilt. Because you've got to get to a point where it's either the organization or this person. And I still have friends, but you won't have friends for long if the organization is not there. So you've got to then weigh those options. It's the ability to deal with non-performance. It is the worst part.
If there was one thing you could attribute your success to, what would it be? An opportunity that came along, a personality trait that you have? What would it be?
I'm a very self-driven person.
Yeah.
Self-driven, the self-drive, the independence that's in me. I think that's what's really pushed me to where I am.
The most challenging thing of your career, still to this day, what would that be?
It's the ability for women to believe in themselves, even when you provide them the opportunity. Go there, this is it. They always feel they need to be validated by either other women or family or their partners. So for me, I wish I could get to a point where women really believe in themselves.
Do you find at Nedbank women need to do that too? The women that you have working here?
You need to push them. When they look at a situation or they look at me, they see there's so much challenges that come with the role. I may not go. And mine, it's a wrong approach. What makes you think you can't go? If another being does it, I don't care whether it's a man or a woman, any other woman. Women are very strong individuals. They're very strong. And I've seen that. But they fear to take on a challenge. And I'm still grasping with that, to say, how do I change them? How do I give them that confidence to take on the next challenge each and every day? Maybe, and the support.
En route to your position today, if there was something you would do differently, what would that be?
I wish I had actually moved forward to become my own boss. I still have that fear of being my own boss.
It's a different style. and that comment's not lost on me, because I realize you were saying earlier on that very much that you think people should plan to where they want to be, but yet you didn't know where you were coming from.
I tell you.
So that's what you would want to do differently, is see the target. It's worked out okay for you, though.
Entrepreneurship is the way to go for developing economies. I would encourage the youth to think differently. We've got great organizations now that we partner with to instill entrepreneurship at an early age with the financial institutions like Students and Free Enterprises, SIFE, an organization, a great global organization. We have an office in Swaziland. We sponsor that, and it assists tertiary institutions, students to do extracurricular activities, working with communities to become entrepreneurs. So these students, they don't look at graduating and looking just for employment. They also look at an alternative of being an entrepreneur. I think that's what I would have done initially. I'm sure I would be a multi-millionaire.
Not everybody can be an entrepreneur, because then we wouldn't have leaders like yourself leading national and international banks, because the integrity still needs to be there too. So, and I guess the problem is everyone thinks they should work for somebody else, and not enough people think they can create their destiny. What does success mean to you?
Success means happiness, content. Happiness for me would be being happy that I've delivered, I've achieved, my family is where it should be, and spiritually I'm sound. That's successful.
How would you define leadership?
You never know you're a leader until they tell you you're a leader. That's the other thing. Leadership is, for me, it's the ability to change situations, to influence other people, and to be able to take the initiative and people follow you.
What leadership advice would you give to someone leading a project, a group of people, or an initiative? If you could give us 3 pieces of advice.
Let's define our roles as leaders. Let's ensure that we have role clarity, be it a project, be it an organization at strategic level, and be it a team. Let's know what we are supposed to be doing, all of us. Let's communicate that role or that objective that we want to do, and let's keep each other informed. Let's be there, keep checking each other, monitoring and evaluation. It's very, very key as a leader. Don't leave things till the end, because you'll be getting pleasant surprises, unpleasant surprises at some point.
What words of wisdom do you give to your 12-year-old daughter?
You are the destiny. You become who you are because of what you believe in. There's so much in you, my girl. There's so much in you. And if you take that and create your future with it, nothing will stop you. The world is your oyster.
What do you wish you were told at that age?
I wish I was told that I have leadership capacity. You know, I never knew, and I never even thought of it until perhaps very late in life. But I wish I had this confidence that, you know what, you're a leader. There's so much leadership in you.
Now, when you look back on your life and childhood, do you see now that there was leadership capability there?
I think there was. I think there was. I'm looking at my primary school. I was on the, I don't know if you know, drum majorate. I was actually leading in the drummers. I was also a prefect, monitor, a school monitor. So there was a bit of leadership. There was, in one way or the other.
What's next for you?
Wow.
Don't worry, Nedbank won't listen to this. Nedbank won't listen to this.
I think the next phase for me, I'd like to do my own business to impart these skills in my own space and work with other women as I do that. It's entrepreneurship, but empowering women.
The world is your oyster. What is the one thing that you'd really love to do that you haven't done as of yet?
I'd really love to travel on my own without feeling guilty.
Yes.
Do a world tour on my own.
Yeah.
Just be myself.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I wish I could do that.
Wonderful. What words of wisdom would you like to impart to African women?
African women are amazing. They're very resilient. By nature, they're very resilient. If you think of the hardships that they've actually gone through, but they've emerged as the women that they are, as mothers, as leaders, and as teachers, because they do a lot of that, and a lot of mentoring is done by women. At whatever stage they're in, African women, be it a mother, at a community level, they still mentor other women or younger women. For me, I'd say use that resilience and believe in yourselves. Have that focus. You can never go wrong.
Thank you so much. Wonderful advice and words of wisdom. Again, my name is Suzanne F Stevens, and I co-produce Wisdom Exchange TV alongside my husband, Michael K. Gardner. We are traveling all over Africa, interviewing women just like this, and it's wonderful to be back in the corporate world, interviewing women at the top of their game. And I want to leave you with my words of wisdom, and it's going to be on the back end of what was said about planning. If you're going into boardrooms, you need to plan. I'll add a couple other things to that too. You need to persuade, you need to persist, and you need to be professional. So never forget that. And please join us at Wisdom Exchange TV. We've just updated our site, and we're adding new information all the time on the front page. So do check us out daily, every other day, to see what's new as we put expert blogs there, as well as join us on Wisdom Exchange TV fan page and like our page, and we have a special offer there for you if you want to be a little more persuasive. Thank you so much for joining us.